Manu, Steve, and Max, welcome to the Running Long podcast.
So great to be here, friend. Thanks for having us.
It's a
Thank you,
pleasure.
Fran. Again, four of us.
Good to see you. How are you guys doing? Back from Chamonix. It's been a little over a week now that we are recording this podcast. And of course, we spent a really good week in Chamonix. The Vert.run house was in Argentière, and I got a chance to visit for a couple of hours. Not spend as much time as I would have liked with you guys. But yeah, how does it feel to be back home?
You had plenty of other things going on over there, friend, so no worries. Yeah, for me, I think this year is a bit difficult to get back into quote unquote normal life and home. It's such a exciting, high energy experience out there in Chamonix for UTMB week that, coming back to where I am in New York, it's markedly different, right? So it's hard to come down from that sort of energy and that experience and get back into the routine of normal life.
It's for sure a big contrast. Yeah.
Huge contrast.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
everyone kind of feels that way, when you're like so energized, so excited for an event, and then you go back home, everything is kind of the same as it was, and maybe the people around you don't really understand what you just experienced. So it's even hard to share with them and to let them be part of your experience and your emotions and joy and all of that. And I always find that not always easy to handle from my perspective. What it was like for you, Manu?
The same than Steve. And you have that energy, that environment that you were living there with all the mountains, all the energy that you have from the athletes, the people that was in Chamonix, and then suddenly back to the flat city of Panama with the warm weather, back to
Yeah.
the office. So it's something like to manage the stuff, the different part of your life, because it's also part of your life. This is something that hard to manage, but it is what it is. So you have to like be grateful that you did that you live it there a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's the one of the main things is to be grateful for the experience. And I think, our daily lives might be quite different from what we all experienced during UTMB week, but I think it also makes you appreciate even more those experiences when you have the chance to live them. So yeah, I wish I was living in Chamonix and every morning I could just get out of the door and run in the Mont Blanc Valley, but I live in another place and I'm happy that I can make the trip to Chamonix once or twice a year and have fun on those trails and race and see you guys. So yeah, I think it's normal. Um, Max, maybe what was if you can share like a few of your favorite memories from the week and what it felt like for you.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much am on the same page with what Steve and Manu was saying. That week just like fills you with energy and motivation, but at the same time it drains or it takes a lot out of you. Because you're meeting a lot of people. Also, what we do with Vert during that week is also very demanding. Of course, you guys, I mean, some of us were racing, not myself, but like you, Fran, were doing OCC, Steve did MCC. Kirsten did OCC and Moy did CCC. So there is a lot of stuff happening during that week. And I guess for that same reason, it's very hard for me to pick a couple of, favorite moments. But I think for me personally, and because I've been doing this trip for a couple of years now, I think to be honest, one of the things that I always kind of are more excited about is just like meeting old friends, people that you normally see once a year, while we spend this time in Chamonix. So on that note, it's always good just like to again meet old friends, but at the same time meet new people, right? And just like kind of talk with people from all over the world who may or may not be there for actual racing, but just like to, support other runners, or because of working with brands, and stuff like that. It's just like this week we're basically all of our industry, right? It's based on that small valley, so it's like very easy to bump into people and just like, start talking about, trail racing, and all sorts of things on that note. So yeah, with not saying anyone in particular, I think for me it's always good to embrace that opportunity of talk with, again, old friends and then new people that I met during that week. And then also, I think on a, again, maybe on a more personal note, it's always awesome for me to see people from our team experiencing the racing, I mean, again, we have Steve here, so he will talk about his race, but it's crazy to me to think that he living in New York, has done this first, Alps race, I guess like what you would call like a proper mountain race, right? And that for me is like very uplifting, right? Because like it's just like part of what we do here, which is like trying to, in a way, make people understand that trail running is everywhere, right? Like regardless of where you live, right? If you train well, if you are motivated, and if you are in the right mindset, you can achieve amazing things, right? So I think that is super inspiring, regardless again of I guess the performance side of things. And then on the other end, I have you, right? And seeing you always, crashing that climb after Lafayette is like always so inspiring, right? So I think I have these two, kind of the same motive, which is like racing, but I have you, right, like showing the sharp end of the racing spectrum, which is like, racing for the win, and then I have the other spectrum about just like people, again, maybe doing their fair race, like proper mountain race, and then just like dealing with all of the struggles. And I guess regardless of if you're elite or not, we have all at some point during our time running suffered through like different struggles about like, yes, finishing a race, struggling physically, mentally. So again, just seeing so many people overcome that, it's very motivating and very inspiring overall.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I really like what you just mentioned. Even for our small team, like it's probably the only chance we have to see each other in person during the year, because we never really get the chance to meet all together and see each other in any other circumstance. So I think that's very important. And even if it's just maybe for a few hours, like in my case, for you guys, it's maybe more more share time. I think that's very important. And then regarding what you mentioned about meeting people and friends, for me, it's always like, you know, like human interactions are always. I love meeting people, but it is also like they take a lot of energy out of you. And so you like before a race, especially, you have to be careful not to, use all your mental energy and just get too excited because to be in the right mindset before the race and to have like all the good energies to spend during the race is important. So I find that balance always, yeah, hard to achieve. Um, but yeah, it is uh, a meeting point for so many people, and I actually wish there were other circumstance where we can, or like our community really reunites, like in Chamonix during UTMB week, in different times of the year. But yeah, it's maybe a topic that we'll keep for uh, the end of this conversation, because I think, yeah, it's really good that UTMB has grown to the size that it is today. But one of my wishes is to see other events, maybe 2 or 3 events grow at the same size and at the same importance for the sport, I think it would make it for a healthier environment, a healthier sport in general. But I think we'll get to that point someday. Yeah, I wanted to ask you, Steve, especially about your race. You ran MCC after it was your second experience actually racing a UTMB race after last year's ETC, which of course was a lot shorter. This year, MCC is, I think, the first race of the weekend of the UTMB week on Monday. It's like 40 kilometers with 2,200 meters of elevation from Martigny to Chamonix. What was it like? How did you feel? Can you share some impressions?
Yeah, I think I'm still processing, to be honest, but I'll try to string together some thoughts and just let me know if they don't make sense. But yeah, I think so. I did do ETC last year, and just because it's shorter doesn't mean it was easier. That's certainly a challenging race for anybody looking for a UTMB experience without maybe doing an ultra. The ETC is certainly going to get you some experience in those amazing mountains and still getting, I think it's 15 or 20 kilometers in. So that was my impression last year, was that I guess my expectation going into MCC this year from my experience last year, where I sort of had fracture training. I was coming off of injury and surgery and wasn't in the best shape or headspace, and it was super challenging. So coming into MCC, I was sort of hoping for the best and expecting something, or, I wouldn't be shocked with something similar. I had a much better training cycle for MCC. I was able to get out on the trails a lot more, get some more, for New York level hills, mountains, get as much vert as I could in tracking the mountain index the whole time on the app was really helpful. And I also started doing more consistent strength and conditioning because I knew I would need that to kind of supplement whatever few hundred or 1,000 feet I could get in a given workout in New York, which wasn't anywhere near what I would experience in MCC. So yeah, I think, overall, I had a really great time. It was a really great experience. My background, I think a lot of people know, is not, I'm not very athletically gifted genetically, or from a history of, or a family of people who are very athletically inclined. So I kind of entered running much later in life, and anything I'm able to accomplish myself I'm always like super proud. So to be able to cover 40 kilometers with 2,000 something meters of elevation in the Alps with all these amazing people who are also in their own like world. Like the biggest thing I was on the starting line thinking about was all these people around me, because I was in like the second wave, was not in the competitive class. Like we're all in our own heads. Can you imagine the journeys everybody's been on? And this might be like a one and done, once in a lifetime sort of experience. And you could kind of feel that energy, and just being around that, knowing that everybody's experiencing something different but similar, was just awesome and awe-inspiring. So that being said, how the race actually panned out, I probably spent 2 more hours than I would have liked to cover the 40 kilometers. To be honest, it took me about a little over 9 hours to go the 40K. And the reason is the first 20 kilometers, after a good 10K start, climbing up through the vineyards, I had something I hadn't really experienced before, which is like cramping in many parts of my body that, I never really experienced in my training. Part of that is probably the heat. Part of that was maybe going out a little bit too hard, although I'm always aware of that myself. And there's also the altitude aspect, and just quite frankly, that those climbs are a lot longer and more steep than I can kind of experience in the area that I live in. So, I reached back into my coaching sort of tool set and knew that I had to adapt. And just slow down. So I slowed down. I had one section where I ran quote unquote a 40-minute mile, I think. Like, it was crazy. It was a really bad segment. And then on top of that, maybe related to it was I couldn't really, my stomach didn't want to take any food in. So I was having a hard time just kind of swallowing anything. And so I was kind of running towards fumes. So when I got to the midpoint, and I'm sorry, I forget the name of the aid station at the 20-kilometer mark, if anybody knows in MCC, but
I think you
Call the
come
bomb?
call the bomb, then you come down to
yeah,
Argentière.
yeah.
Le Tour, maybe? Yeah.
So it's a great like aid station. There's a lot of people up there, like a lot of tourists too, doing hiking and stuff. So it's really amazing. But I got into that aid station. The announcement was like 10 minutes till cut off,
Oh,
and I was freaking out.
yeah.
So I shoved like pretzels into my mouth, had some Coke, and did what I could very quickly. Actually, shoved them in my pocket too. A lot of pretzels because they were coming down, going down well, and chocolate. The chocolate was amazing out there. And then I kind of, thankfully, it was mostly downhill from there, as everybody was saying, which was accurate. So I think the anxiety or the urgency from that, knowing that somewhere behind me, not too far away, was the sweep or the cutoff, made me really want to book it downhill. And I made up a whole lot of time. Met some good people that shifted my energy to a more positive space. I was running with a couple of adaptive athletes, so two individuals, two guys who were running with prosthetics, one leg prosthetics, and we were leapfrogging, and I was so amazed by what they were able to do in this terrain, and that kind of kept me motivated and inspired. So the last 20 kilometers was much faster, much better than the first 20. And the experience getting into Chamonix, finishing in the town, coming to the finish line is something that, if you can do it within your lifetime, if you're not a professional trail runner, I'm not. If you're able to make it the UTMB race and do one of the, like an MCC, OCC, CCC, or the UTMB, that experience is one you'll never forget. And to be honest, like, a lot of our team members were there to greet me towards the finish, which was really cool to see and have people cheering me on. So yeah, that last, was it 3K, made the first 37 kilometers completely worth it. And thank God it was on a Monday. It was like the first race of the week. I got to get that over with and support everybody else and hang out in the booth and recover. So yeah, that's in a nutshell sort of what my experience was, and I wouldn't change it for the world. I'm proud of my training. Definitely have lessons learned for future training and how I can, train differently, I guess, if I'm going to run a race in, proper mountains and similar to the Alps. But yeah, I finished very proud, despite being 2 hours behind my ideal finish time.
That's awesome. It feels like a super meaningful experience for you, and yeah, your description is vibrant.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, these things it's one
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
I love about coaching, is that it can be really life-changing what our athletes that we help.
Yeah, a lot of times I don't think about that a lot, but it is powerful. It is beautiful that trail running brings people together from all walks of life, and you get to stand on the same start line as everybody else. Each one in his own thoughts and with their own emotions and fears and worries maybe. And then if you make it, you get to cross the same finish line as Katie Scheid or Vincent Bouillard. So it's pretty neat.
Or Francesco Pupi.
No, Francesco Pupi, yeah, that's right. I was just about to say the same.
Cool.
Now your turn, Frank. How was yours?
Oh, my race, yeah. So yeah, it's been similar for me. as Steve in some ways, because I haven't really been able to process or to do like a proper post-race recap. I don't know, maybe the race is too close, or maybe I will never do that. But what I can say is that I'm extremely proud of how I ran and what I gave to the race, to the competitions, and to the other athletes who were running with me. I think every time you're able to give your best to your competitor, your 100% to a race, no matter the result, you can feel completely satisfied. And then, of course, the result was probably beyond expectations, because I've had a pretty difficult build up, I would say. It was only like in the final couple of weeks before OCC that I really felt like I could maybe, replicate the result from last year, and if not the result, like try to have a similar approach. For me, it's a lot about the mindset, the reason why you choose to line up at a race, more than what's your goal. Like with with my coach, or like with my fellow athletes, we never really talk about podiums or results, or like goals, or time. We talk about training. Like we talk about that stuff, like what is required to get to the start line in your best shape, uh in the best shape possible. So yeah, it wasn't easy, for sure. But the race played out in a similar fashion as last year, I think, because everyone kind of goes off pretty hard from the start, and I was ready for that. So you keep an eye on what's happening in the front, but then you also try to listen to your body, and know that it's going to be you know in the best case scenario, like a 5-hour race. And then I think there is a lot of people that go out like it's a 2-hour race, and then they blow up. But of course, that, so you try to be mindful. But the first couple of hours for me are always kind of rough, because the pace is fast, and we also got a pretty warm day, so the conditions weren't the best to run fast, and I think it just made the race harder for everyone. Um, so I was just trying to be smart, and staying hydrated, and keep fueling correctly. And then I knew that in the second half I could maybe make up some ground on the front of the race and move up in the rankings, which eventually happened. The only moment where I almost felt like the race was gone was just before Call the Balm, because I took a wrong turn. There's actually a video where you can really see where I took the wrong turn, because there was like some kind of, like a banner, or like a stripe on the trail that seemed to point on my left. So I followed what looked like a trail, but it wasn't trail, and I ended up in the bushes. And that cost me like 2.5 minutes. And when I got back on on track, of course, I didn't know what position I was, how much time I had lost. So I felt like pretty disoriented. So I had to refocus. And then when I understood that I was still in the top 10 and was still running well, I think then it became easier to push, and to do my own race. But I think it was like a pretty rough 10 to 15 minutes where I lost some concentration, and I just didn't know. Like I wasn't sure what happened. Of course, I was disappointed that I had taken a wrong turn, and I was thinking, well, maybe today is just not my day. I wasn't feeling great from the start. Then I took a wrong turn. maybe this is how it's meant to be. But then I can say I'm proud of myself because I didn't give up. I still gave myself a chance to run at my full potential, to run my best race. And then near Col de Balme, when I caught up with Chris Jones and then Remy Bonnet and then Christian Allen, so I caught like 3 people within a couple of kilometers. I saw that I was still feeling pretty good, and then from there, I think it was just about, you know, pushing to the limits and suffering, because at the end of the day, it's a lot of suffering, especially in the last hour of the race and in the final downhill. It's like whoever can take the most amount of pain. And I think you only have maybe 1 or 2 shots in a year where you can really dig that deep, because it's such a high request to make to yourself, to your body, but then it was totally worth. And yeah, I'm glad I got to Chamonix uh without, Antonio was not as close as last year, so we didn't get to like a sprint finish, and I could like cross the finish line. Not like, yeah, I wasn't like super relaxed, but at least I wasn't really seeing anyone behind me. So that was nice. And then, yeah, of course, there were a ton of people in Chamonix, and the crowd was huge. And it was my mom at the finish, which surprised me because she didn't tell me that she would come to watch me. And I think she convinced some, volunteers or photographers to let her inside the finish area. So that felt a little embarrassing at times, but yeah, it was really nice to share those moments with her. And then, yeah, there were my coach, my girlfriend, and a couple of friends. I was mostly too tired to do anything, and I think as soon as I got past the finish line after I got up, I think some people wonder what happens, to the top 3 or maybe the top 10 athletes after the finish. There's not really anything organized by UTMB. So I was like kind of grateful that the chaperone from the anti-doping took me and drove me to the anti-doping, where I could like lay down and drink some water and have some food and just relax a little bit before I peed for the anti-doping. So that was my OCC.
Like, let me jump in a little bit because I just want to say 2 things. One, as you were like hovering top 10 or whatever, we weren't seeing you a lot on the live stream, but you were always there. I mean, they normally focus on the top 2, right? And especially I think this year your teammate Christian went out so fast that the camera was staying with them like pretty much until Col de Balme.
Yep.
And then like that massive downhill is when we first start seeing you, as you were now saying. That's where you catch, I think 3 runners.
Yep.
And I remember you seeing, I think in Le Tour, when you were like maybe top 4, top 5 or something. And you were saying like very calm. So it's like kind of shocking to hear that maybe you were already having all of this mental struggle, but at least for the TV, you were looking very smooth, like very in control. So at least personally, I have no doubt that you were gonna be able to like close very strong. So it's like almost funny to hear, like sometimes when you are seeing stuff on the TV or whatever live stream, kind of you think things are going smoothly, but then maybe internally, things are about to be
Yeah.
falling apart, right? And it's crazy because like people, of course, like don't get to see, you don't get to see that. And even like if you have commentators like knowing you and everything, it's very hard to see those signals, right? Unless you are now here like debriefing your experience. So again, it's kind of wild to hear that maybe you were struggling after that,
I think
little section that you took off.
I think the perspective of an athlete is is sometimes different from the perspective that people who are watching the race get
Yeah.
from,
Yeah.
either the live stream or if they're watching the race in person. Yeah, because I mean, at least for me, things are never really super smooth. And yeah, overall, it felt like a super hard race, and I think it was harder than in 2023. Then of course
Yeah.
you don't really remember the pain, like how hard it actually was, because I think if you could actually remember how painful it was, you wouldn't sign up
You wouldn't do
for,
it again.
yeah,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
wouldn't do it again, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know, but another thing that struck me was that, especially on the final climb, a lot of people thought that I was gonna catch Eli, even if it was, pretty far ahead, but I was
Yeah.
making up a lot of like gaining a lot of ground.
Yeah. Yeah. And he
But
was
honestly,
stopping too.
yeah, it was stopping, it was cramping, then it was able to finish still
Yeah.
pretty strong. So yeah, I actually never saw him. But personally, like I was just worried. Like first, I didn't even know exactly what position I was. And
Really? You knew
yeah, like
when you started the climb, you didn't know you were third?
I wasn't sure I was, like I knew I was between fifth position and third position, but I didn't
Yeah.
really know. And then I was, of course, a lot more focused on catching Antonio and not getting
Yeah.
caught by the people behind me than to maybe think about Eli. But for most people, it was all about, okay, Francesco is gonna maybe be maybe be in the front. But for
Yeah.
me, that
Yeah.
was never a real scenario. So
Yeah. Wow.
that's another difference in perspective, that if you're not inside the race, you maybe don't understand that
Yeah.
that is different.
Uh,
Then of course, like yeah, after the finish, I was like completely satisfied. Now, in retrospect, there is a little bit of what if I hadn't taken the wrong turn, which cost me around 2.5 minutes. At the end of the race, the gap from Eli was less than 3 minutes. So it would have been really close. We'll never know what could have happened, but um, yeah, there is a little bit of that thought as
my,
well.
my other the other thing that I wanted to comment, and this was pretty amazing to see on the live stream, was where you actually caught Antonio right on that exposed climb, kind of, I
Yeah,
don't know,
near
one
La
K or
Flagère.
500 meters before La Flachera, and like you give him like, pat in the back and then you
Mhm.
move on. I mean, how was being there? Because I'm guessing you were already seeing him when, the exposed part started, but then you knew that you were gonna get him. And I mean, were you at least at that point kind of confident that you could get second place?
Uh, yeah, I mean, not super confident, because I know Antonio is such a good downhill
He's in
runner.
there. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So actually we exited the aid station in La Flagère together, and we were running side to side. There was actually a video, and if you watch the live stream, you can see us running together. And then on the downhill, actually this is funny because I was so focused that, I was running and I was hearing someone behind, and it wasn't until maybe halfway through the downhill that I realized that the person behind me was the camera runner and not Antonio. Because I don't know, I was so focused, and at some point I thought, but like, why doesn't he pass me? I'm not going that fast. Like, I know he's gonna be better than me. And then I think I turned and I saw that, Antonio was not there anymore, and he was just the camera runner. So I was like, oh my gosh, I must be really tired. But yeah, it was nice to see that I had dropped him. Of course, I didn't expect that. Um, and yeah, in the final section of the climb up to La Flagère, you have this like sort of ski slope, so you can really see for a few hundred meters in front and behind you. And I was seeing that I was making up a lot of ground on Antonio. So yeah, I knew I could catch him on the climb, but then the downhill was like just a big question mark. And eventually I think I was just feeling better than him. Like I just had a little bit more energy than he had. And yeah, I'm super happy for my second place, but I think it's his third podium in a row at OCC, and that shows how good of a runner he is and how consistent he is. And
I mean, the same goes to you though. But yeah, I agree. It's almost funny and comical that the second and the third were the same, and the first is
yeah,
the
I
one
know.
that fifth.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
He has
and
such a
maybe
good strategy for this race. Like I think he had the perfect execution. Like he didn't like he just set his own pace, is like stayed out of troubles, and
yeah,
then
but
climbed
pretty
up to
much
the podium.
I'm pretty much like you did. I mean, that's how I feel. You know, like not go out super aggro and then just like know your efforts and just like kind of believing that if you continue doing what you're doing, you will just be at the front no matter what.
Yeah, I was a little bit more in the heart of the race. I was running a lot with Remy and also Eli in the first hour of the race when Christian was in the front. Um, but yeah, I think one of the lessons that we can take from maybe my race and also Antonio's race is that the best strategy is to always listen to your body and to really understand what you're capable of and have a good strategy and stick to that, because it doesn't pay off to to do whatever people around you are doing. You have to focus on your own race and what you're doing, and really be in tune with your effort, with your body to run well.
Yeah, that's I 100% agree.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, I
Yeah.
just had one question on when you took that wrong turn, how did you mentally stay in it and stay focused and stay motivated to keep running at such a high level? And I'm saying that from the perspective of, you know, other runners who, we all know people who have participated in races and one thing goes wrong or they make a wrong turn and they kind of just give up at that point. And now, you were competing hard and made that turn, lost a couple minutes, and were able to kind of regroup, refocus, and get back into it. So how did you stay so mentally strong at that point?
Yeah, it's a good question. Um, I don't really know. Like I think it's just part of the of my mental toolkit. And then like if I am in the race, I might as well try to give my best no matter what. Taking a wrong turn is part of the game. Uh, I think it wasn't 100% my mistake because the course was not very well marked in that point. But my competitors didn't take the wrong turn, and I did. So that's my fault. But yeah, I think I had maybe 15 minutes where I lost some concentration, some focus. But that's normal. Like you end up in a situation like you need to understand where you are and what you're doing, and just refocus and reset your strategy. And then I remember when I got to call the bomb, there was a ton of people and some friends. There was Dylan Bowman up there, and I was yelling to some people that I had taken a wrong turn, and I didn't know what position I was and how much of a gap I had from the front of the race. And I think having a little bit of feedback and interaction with the fans and people outside of the race, that also helped. because yeah, it gave me some motivation, and then yeah, I don't really know, but I feel like, you know, I always feel like the hardest hardest part, both physically and mentally, is to get to the race, like get to the start line, and then once the guns goes off, it's you just get to enjoy the best part of the experience. So yeah, no matter how it goes, I was grateful to be there. I was looking forward to run on those trails with those people and have a good day in the mountains.
Another question, and that's probably related also for the wrong term you made it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it also gives you a little punch or a little more stamina in order to get the position you were? So it gives you more push
Yeah.
to reach the place you finished. That was amazing.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think a little bit, yeah, it gave me a little bit of stamina, or like, you know, a little boost, especially like in the last section of the climb up to Col de Balme, where I was really trying to push hard. Then of course, yeah, you have to be careful not to waste too much energy, but there was maybe like a 5 to 10 minute section where I felt even more energized, and I was a little angry at myself. So I was like, come on, let's do this thing, and let's, you know, let's make up some ground. Really let's get serious now. So there was a little bit of that reaction, but I think it only lasted for a few minutes, and then once the downhill started, it was more about setting my own pace and, you know, getting into the long race mindset that was needed to get to the finish.
And last question on my end, and I know it may be too soon, but what do you think about third time is the charm?
Ooh, yeah, I don't know. The the first thought that I had after the race was that since I feel like I have given this race my 100%, my absolute best, there is not a whole lot of motivation to go back and try it again. Of course, my 100% may be different from one year to the other, so who knows what it will be next year, but I think it could be more interesting to try another experience, because like, yeah, the third time in a row feels like maybe too much, and there are so many, you know, other good experiences that I want to try, and you know, CCC and UTMB are just there, so eventually I think I will
Wow.
want to try one of them.
Okay, so people hear it here first.
Yeah.
No need to go deeper, because I know, you know, it's a long way still for
We're
2025,
still,
but
yeah, we're still in 2024, and there's still
yeah.
some races to do this year, I think.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for the question. It was interesting. Moving on a little bit from our experiences, I wanted to talk a little bit about UTMB as an event, especially from our own perspective, as, you know, Vert.run coaches and employees and Vert.run people. For example, you know, we all worked and stopped by the Vert.run booth at the Ultra Village. For example, how much of an impact does having a booth and a presence at UTMB during that week have in terms of, you know, brand awareness and connection with the people and the community? I think it's something hard to measure, but what was your impression? Like, were people excited to see you, and were they interested in, you know, in what we do I think there was people that maybe thought that we are, I don't know, not a coaching company, but like a, I don't know, a travel company or whatever. But yeah, what was your impression overall?
If I can jump in first, I think a couple of stuff to begin with. And one, I think it is very powerful for us, as a company to have a presence there, regardless if it is, within the constraints of a booth or not. But I think it's very powerful for us like to kind of show our faces to the world, like to this like niche of world, which is like the trail running community. Just to understand that, we're a small company, that we're all runners here. We all are trying our best here to build the service that we want to build within our app and all of that. And also, having the coaches there and being, kind of live for people to meet them is something that it is very powerful. And I'm sure Manu and Steve can add out on that. But just to touch briefly, it's funny when like people come and say like, "Hey, I train with you guys. Like, this is my coach," and like, "Oh, your coach is like on the other end," and they met, they give a hug, and it's like, they may have been talking, within the chat for months now, and it's that, aha moment that you realize that, oh, my coach, is a human being, right? Especially, I think in the AI world that we live now, some people tend to
Yeah, that's
think
really
that,
cool.
that this company may be run by bots, but it's not. We are literally a small, company that has now 10 coaches all around the world. So that thing alone, it is very, very powerful. And again, regardless if it is official or non-official, I think just being present there during that week, it is something very powerful. And you see, basically all brands, doing, you know, some sort of activations, I think almost it's to the point that there is too much stuff going on within that week,
Yeah, I wanted to
which can feel
add
overwhelming
something
for
on
sure.
that.
But only to add that, it is important and it is relevant to have some sort of presence during that week. Again, regardless if you are an official partner, regardless if you have athletes running, regarding whatever, just from the perspective of like having, interesting conversations, kind of again created that brand awareness that you were talking if you are trying to build something within the space. So I think we are always very happy to be, doing stuff over there during that week, and I think we will continue trying our best to have some sort of presence, um, during that period of time in the Chamonix Valley for sure.
Yeah. You know what bothers me sometimes? That for the brands, it almost feels mandatory to be there at the UTMB week and do activations and events and stuff. But then they don't care about anything else happening in the trail running world for the other 51 weeks of the year, you know?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I
So
and
that feels weird for
uh,
someone who is so much into the sport and loves the sport and works and, is also a professional athlete. So that is kind of weird, but of course it's not our case because we think and talk about trail running every single day. But yeah, I think for some brands at least, the UTMB as an event is just an excuse for them to be there and do business, and it's the
definitely,
outdoor
yeah.
business. It's maybe normal within our economic system, but as someone who is passionate about the sport, it is something maybe weird to witness, and it doesn't happen anywhere else. So that is for sure something that always uh, stands out for me.
I want to
Um,
jump in.
Yeah,
Oh,
go ahead,
go
Manu.
ahead, man. Yeah.
just to finish that thought, and I think this comes to what you were saying at the beginning of the conversation about like how it would be good if, within the next years we see other sort of like, venues or like, opportunities, of like bringing the community together. And I know like in the States, of course there is like Western States Week and all of that. which may feel even more niche than what UTMB
Yeah,
is.
for sure.
And I think overall we have a lot of work to do on that aspect, just like to continue creating the instances for people to gather and just like to kind of know more about the sport, right? But that's, that's on everybody, meaning brands, meaning athletes, meaning all, like even like, what we now call content creators and everything. I think we just need to do a
Media.
better job at just like talking about the stuff that we want to talk more often, not when it's just like UTMB week.
Yeah, I think the media have a lot of responsibility. And of course, yeah, there's always good and bad. Just to clarify, like my wish is not that UTMB stops growing. My wish is that other events grow up to the size and the importance that UTMB currently has, and maybe start to challenge its status so that it doesn't feel like a monopoly anymore, because UTMB is like almost a monopoly within the trail space. And it's not anymore the only event where everyone shows up, media, brands, and athlete. And of course, here I'm talking from an athlete perspective. I think we would have an healthier sport if we could have maybe 3 or 4 events of a similar size and importance as UTMB that the elite athletes can choose from. And of course, UTMB will always remain special for its history and tradition and what it represents for the sport. But I think having some options, some alternatives, especially from a competitive and also from a business standpoint, would make the sport more interesting and probably better. I think we're not yet at that point because there is maybe not enough participants, not enough interest. From a competitive standpoint, I think we don't have the density of the athletes to create another event that is similar or like the same size as UTMB, especially talking about the women's race. So I think it's a lot of different dynamics, but the path we're on is probably the right path to go in that direction.
No, I'm gonna jump in with
Yeah,
a
go ahead,
different
Manu.
perspective. This is my first Chamonix. I have been running a while, but this is my first week or my first time at Chamonix. As I told you before, the environment and all, the powerful people that you can see there, the energy that is living there is just amazing. And what Max was saying as well as you is to have the opportunity to meet your people, not our athletes, not the one that I coach, but the one that, for example, Steve or you or Dan or any of our coach do the job with them. It's just amazing. And they'll also realize what Mark was saying, that we are not a booth. We are just people and athletes that are working with you as an athlete. So sometimes we understand what you're doing or what you are living there when you are in the middle of the mountain running. So that was something really amazing there. Something that for me was really crazy is on Friday at the midday, all the booths were just, you have to leave the booths.
Oh yeah.
And that's it. It's something like, hey, the UTMB is just happening. How are you gonna take all the booths out? It's
I know
just,
that is pretty crazy. Yeah.
yeah. And you have like 45 minutes to take all the stuff out. Stevie and me were working in that thing. It's like, why is that happening? Is the main race is happening right now? Why are you gonna take all the stuff out?
Yeah.
And in the Saturday, was no booths in there. There was no houses because the booths were like a little houses. So the town was just over. So that's something that impressed me a lot.
That's a good one. Yeah. You know what?
Yes.
Another thing that is weird is that the CCC finish is just after UTMB start, and there is not a whole lot of crowd in Chamonix for CCC's finish, especially for the women's race, because everybody is on the course to watch UTMB, and like all the focus is on UTMB. So we were like near the Ultra Village where there was like lots of people working to clear up the booths and everything. and Tony McCann finishing the race. And on that street that is usually like super crowded, there was
Nobody.
nobody, like just a few people, it felt weird. And then, yeah, of course, at the finish line, there's still a lot of people. But then, yeah, it's maybe an impression that people who are not in Chamonix don't get from the outside. But
But
it
when
definitely
he
feels very
crossed,
different from the finish of, OCC
or
or
you
UTMB.
TDS,
Because
even
like
the
CC,
PTL.
yeah, like CCC, like OCC is the only race happening on Thursday. So like all the focus is on OCC. Then UTMB is the only race happening on Saturday, so everyone is on UTMB. I feel like CCC is kind of in between OCC and UTMB and doesn't have like the full attention of the people who are in Chamonix. So
Yeah.
that's maybe
When he was turning at the hotel, taking the street from the river, taking the street, he was just along that street, was just
yeah,
people
exactly.
moving the stuff out of the booth. So
Yeah.
no one was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, was something crazy. But at the end,
I don't know why they closed
still
the Ultra Village basically on
Friday afternoon,
Friday, yeah, at
midday.
midday.
Yeah, I don't know. That's something that impressed me a lot. And the other thing is
I mean,
still the
actually, I
energy.
know because like on Sunday morning, no matter what, there is the Chamonix market. So that has to take place. So I think that might be the reason. You can always
Exactly.
buy like baguette and vegetables and fruit
From
on
the
Sunday
people
morning.
out there, exactly, that's good. But you also have to, in seeing that from the commercial perspective, you can change a little bit even the area and put those market over there because you have people there. You have, I don't know, see, I hear from one of the people who live in Chamonix that week they make like 60% of the income from the town during that week. For the 60% of the income that Chamonix have, it happening that week. After that,
Yeah.
it's just 40%. So it's like you have to move the people, try to move the people as well to get to go to the market to purchase the stuff. So I don't know, it have to, something can change a little bit in that case. But at the end of the story, it's something different. All the brands were there. As you and Mark were saying, they are doing a lot of stuff there. You can see trucks of the brands, the offers and the capacity. For example, I use one shoes for free, 24 hours. They give it me for free just to test it, the shoes. And it's something amazing because that type of marketing, you can even copy and put it in other events. So in that order, you can start magnify other events, as you were mentioned. Not to have just Chamonix, you can have other events where you can copy and paste some of the strategy you did there as a marketing stuff in other events so to start growing. But it's something amazing, believe me. Something for me was my first time and it's still in love and it's still like I was there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool. Last year, Adidas Terex gave for free 500 pairs of their
Yeah.
new Gravage Speed trail shoe for free, like 500 pairs. So like, crazy things happen
Wow.
during that week. I think.
And
Yeah.
Kraft also did something last year. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I was talking to some people and especially some media. The rules have gotten a lot more strict, especially this year for the photographers and the brands for when they can post and the image rights. Of course, the licensing rights for the media are super expensive, but yeah, they're really trying to build an event that is like super high profile, and in order to do that, they have a lot of rules in place. And I think it's also to protect brands like, Hoka and Sunto, who actually sponsor the event and pay a lot of money so that, whoever is benefiting from, the marketing, the media, the communication from the UTMB week that is not contributing to the event directly doesn't have like an advantage over, Hoka or Sunto or NAC, for example. So yeah, it's growing, and personally, it felt like this year, especially, a few years ago, it felt like UTMB really started on Wednesday. This year, it felt like it really started on Monday, of like the first day of the week, because everyone is there basically since either Monday or even Sunday night before the week before UTMB. So it's already a lot of things happening since Monday, and like basically it's nonstop until Sunday. So there's stuff
The
going
other
on for the whole week.
the other perspective that I saw is meet all of you guys, because we have been together for almost 3 years working together, but at least this time we had like shake hands, hug the other guys,
Yeah,
lift, not in your case because you were just focusing your race and that's good. But we were at we call the Vert.run headquarters at Chamonix, was the house. So living together, eating, having fun, making jokes each other was something really great. That
yeah,
was amazing.
yeah. I think the human connection, you cannot replace that, and every time there is the opportunity to meet people, to spend time with your friends and the people that you work with that are passionate about the same thing as you're passionate about, it's always special. And yeah, personally, it was also super, super, super nice to meet, some of my athletes, to actually see some of my athletes finishing the races, either OCC, CCC, or UTMB. A lot of them came up to me and, we're happy for their training, and yeah, just the relationship that we have developed over many months or even years. So that was also pretty special, and I think it was the same experience for you.
Yeah, and even just running into them at aid stations, unexpectedly.
Yeah,
when
unexpectedly. That's right.
Yeah, yeah, amazing.
Cool. Yeah, I think that was pretty much everything. I don't know, Max or Manu, if you wanted to add anything, any final thoughts.
No, I mean, I think we cover a lot of ground here, and I think maybe for some of us that have been there before and have seen the growth of the sport, we may have like a more critical view of how things may be developing for the next couple of years, which I think is great. And then on the other end, it's great hearing someone like Manu, who is had their first trip to Chamonix and the UTMB week, and of course all of the excitement and everything. And that goes to say that things are going to get crazy, I think, in the next couple of years for sure. This, sport and the UTMB as a whole, and then all the races will continue growing. More people will, start hitting the trails and everything. So again, maybe more of a reflection than a message is like, we all play a role here, right? Depending on, if you're a brand, if you are an elite runner, if you're even like a normal person who are just starting their journey in the trails. I think we still have a lot of power, in how we want to continue building our sport for the next couple of years.
Exactly.
So I think it's always important to have a reflection, right, and talk about stuff in order to, again, kind of understanding if things are moving in the right direction, or at least the direction that we believe it's the best one for all of us. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That's something super important. And yeah, we sure have a uh maybe for especially me and Max, we are always critical, I think, in a positive way towards the experiences, the things that are happening in our sport, but it's because we care about our sport, and we care that it grows in a good direction and in a sustainable way, that it is respectful for the people, the communities, for the environment, all those things. And yeah, it's important to remember that, the products that you buy, the races that you choose, where you put your money actually makes a little difference on the growth of the sport, on what direction you want to see the sport growing. So yeah, thanks for the reminder, for sure.
And yes, for me, I'm gonna be there next year, probably running one of the races.
For sure.
So that's the other stuff that made me like thinking about that time, because I was a little down of energy to keep trail running right now, getting the energy from there. I already prepared my whole season to be in the OCC, and of course not at your level, but running the OCC. But then in the other hand, is the marketing area. How much it cost me to be there at the OCC, because I have to run 2 races to get, all the stones and all the stuff. So it's like, come on, it's just, you want it, but the commercial is also the other point of view. It's just how much it's gonna cost the whole stuff.
Yeah, it's for sure expensive to participate in these races, and for someone coming from the other side of the world to buy a plane ticket and book an accommodation in Chamonix, and then do the race, and to buy the gear, the products that you need for the nutrition and everything is for sure very expensive. And I think we also need to do a better job at increasing the accessibility and the opportunities for the practice of trail running for people, who maybe don't have the same opportunities as I've had to do this sport. There's actually a lot of talk among the professional athletes, because of course, for athletes from North America or Europe who are running at a high level, it's relatively easy to get support and a sponsorship, a contract. But for people who are coming from Asia, Africa, or South America, it's way harder. And a lot of times they only get maybe free gear, but they don't have any support in terms of logistics, accommodation, and travel to get to Chamonix and compete at UTMB. So one of the things we're working on, and for example, with the Pro Trail Runners Association, is to, ask UTMB to give these athletes some support and opportunity to come, because of course, Jim Walmsley probably doesn't need free accommodation, because Hoka is already paying for his flight and his accommodation and everything. But maybe Joaquim Lopez, who plays third at UTMB, for him, maybe it's different. And he comes from Ecuador. I think he had for sure a breakthrough race. He surprised everyone. It's actually not a new name in the sport, because if you've been following the sport with some attention, it's always been a really good athlete. But I think it's very important to give these people the same opportunities that the top athletes are getting, especially the top athletes from
the North Hemisphere.
Yeah, exactly. Because we, like, regardless if we want it or not, but I think it would be unfair not to admit that we have an advantage over people who are coming from another part of the world.
From developing country. That's normal. For example, just to qualify, Fran, for any of the races, you have to do at least 2. So in South America, at least we have right now like 3 races that you can get some stone. So just to qualify, it's a lot of money. And then to travel to UTMB or to travel to Chamonix during that week is also a lot of money. So it costs a lot of money. So people, normal people, let's put it in that way, not professional athletes, just people like me or like Steve, it's not that easy for us like to get there. So that's what for me was something amazing to be there. That's the other stuff.
yeah, on the other hand, it makes it even more special because it's maybe a once in a lifetime opportunity for some people, for sure. But yeah, I think it's important to talk about these things and make sure our sport remain as accessible and inclusive as possible.
Yeah, as Vert.run is affordable and accessible for all the
Yeah.
athletes.
Yeah.
Nice one. Yeah.
Okay, guys.
Before
Yeah.
we say goodbye, last shout out to you, Fran. Not only for your performance, but because of the podcast. We heard a lot of
Thanks.
people coming to the booth. They say like, "Hey, we love the podcast. We love Fran and everything." So yeah, I think we have talked about this. How hard it is sometimes to come up, with a podcast every week and be consistent. But people really appreciate your work. So hopefully we can continue,
Yeah.
doing what we do with the podcast and the
Thanks.
content because like people is loving it.
Thanks. It means a lot. Yeah, maybe if I can add, if anyone wants to reach out and suggest a topic or some guests, or if anyone wants to be a guest of the podcast, you can reach out to me and we can discuss and maybe schedule an episode because I'm always looking for new people, new ideas. I think the hardest thing for me is to find people that are available to record when I need.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm always looking around. Okay, guys, thanks for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Have a
Ciao,
good
ciao,
one.
guys.
Ciao,
Have a
ciao.
good one. Ciao, ciao.